Today, Congress is preparing for the Senate impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump, which begins tomorrow. It is an historic first for the nation, as a president has never been impeached twice. Our Yamiche Alcindor and Lisa Desjardins joins me now. Hello to both of you on this Monday night. Lisa, to you first. We are just less than a day away, but they're still hammering out the details of how this is going to work. Tell us what you know at this point.
Remarkably, Judy, we just got the final details for this trial in the last couple of hours. This will be a shorter impeachment trial, it looks like, at least, than the first one for former President Trump. Let's go through how this is going to work. First of all, tomorrow, the first day of the trial. That day is being set aside for arguments over the constitutionality of this trial. There will be up to 4 hours of arguments, and then the Senate will vote on whether this is constitutional to try a former president. You may recall the Senate has taken a similar vote. They will do it again tomorrow. That is expected to pass. Then Wednesday, for the rest of the week, will be the arguments of the trial itself, presentations by both sides, up to 16 hours per side, so 4 days total. Now, there's a note here. The trial will not meet on Saturday. They will recognize the Jewish Sabbath as per the request of one of former President Trump's attorneys, who is an Orthodox Jew. Instead, the trial will resume on Sunday. Now, talk about this. We expect these to be the main days of the arguments, those 4 days up until Sunday. After that, closing arguments for about 4 hours, again, far fewer than in the past trial, and senators will then have 4 hours to ask questions. Again, also much less than last time. An open question that is not yet resolved is, will there be witnesses? This Senate resolution that is governing the trial allows for witnesses if House managers or Trump's attorneys ask for them, and if the Senate votes to allow it. So we may not have an answer to that question soon. I'm told that House managers have not yet decided if they want witnesses or not. One very last note, I'm told senators will be allowed to space out throughout the chamber into the galleries, and there will be a special room. They will use one of the cloakrooms, sort of, or one of the Senate lobbies, and have a television in there for senators to watch off the floor so they can space out.
All this in the era of COVID. And Lisa, what is known at this point about how the prosecutors plan to make their case?
Just a few things here, Judy. They really believe, they want to say that President Trump himself was personally responsible for this riot, and they are going to use videos from social media to prove their case. I don't have more details on that, but I expect that to come from people who participated in the riot, perhaps as well as people who covered it.
And now over to you, Yamiche. You've been in touch with former President Trump's people. What do we know about how his lawyers, his attorneys, plan to present his defense?
Former President Trump's lawyers plan to defend him vigorously, and they're really going to be going with two-track approach. The first is focused on the process, the jurisdiction, the due process. The second part is going to be focused on the speech, on political rhetoric, on the First Amendment. On the first part, there was a 78-page brief released today from his lawyers. Part of that really is a window into what they're going to be saying during this trial, and I want to read from you some part of it. It says, the Senate is being asked to do something patently ridiculous, try a private citizen in a process that is designed to remove him from an office that he no longer holds. That's the president's lawyer saying there that he's no longer president of the United States, and thus he should not be in an impeachment trial. Of course, Democrats say there is still the issue of whether or not he should be banned from holding office. The second part of the president's lawyer's defense is, again, when it coming to political rhetoric. And for that, they write, the president did not direct anyone to commit lawless actions. The claim that he could be responsible if a small group of criminals misunderstood him is simply absurd. They're saying here that the president's words were to walk peacefully to the Capitol. Of course, Democrats are saying, in fact, that the president said fight like hell, and as a result, that really incited thousands of people to go to the Capitol and do that. One other thing, we should be watching for video of this. There's, from my understanding, the president's lawyers are going to be using video of Democrats saying fiery things at political rallies to make their point. Also, this is in direct contrast to what the president's own supporters are saying when they're being tried in court. They're saying the president told us to go to the Capitol in their different states, and this is the president's lawyer saying that's just simply not the case.
And Yamiche, what can we expect to hear from the people who are arguably at the center of this? President Trump himself, President Biden.
Well, we're going to hear a lot from President Trump's lawyers, and we're going to hear very little, from my understanding, from former President Trump as well as for current President Joe Biden. I want to walk you through who his attorneys are. The first is Bruce Castor. He served 2 terms as an elected district attorney in Montgomery County, just outside of Philadelphia. He's most famous for his 2005 decision not to prosecute Bill Cosby when he was facing allegations of sexual assault from a Temple University employee. There's also David Schoen. He is another attorney. He represented Roger Stone, was a Trump associate. He also consulted with the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein during the final days before his death. He also had some very controversial clients, including accused mobsters, including successfully defending the Ku Klux Klan, as well as others. And what you see here is really 2 men that are going to be taking to the stage, really defending the president full-throatedly. The other thing to note is that the president isn't going to be testifying himself. I talked to his attorney, or his former attorney, Alan Dershowitz, and he told me that no attorney would want President Trump to be testifying. He said it would be a perjury trap. So this is really President Trump letting his lawyers doing all the talking. And the White House says President Biden will not be watching much of the impeachment trial. Instead, he'll be focused, they say, on getting his COVID relief bill passed.
Well, we are going to be covering it very closely, and the 2 of you are going to be right at the center of our coverage. Yamiche Alcindor, Lisa Desjardins, thank you both.
Thank you.